At this point, I want to open it up for questions. We have 2 microphones. Come on, Ron, you can go first. Or you can sit there if you want, that's fine. I said you can go. Question, yeah.
Okay. It's really loud, so you have to go.
The first thing I want to do, I want to ask Mrs. Johnson a couple of questions on. Could you bring up that chart there with the tax, what it's going to cost people?
Yep, one back to that one.
Right there. Now that's a home value assessment, isn't it, Mrs. Johnson?
Come on for the microphone, it'll be easier.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, did you assess what it's going to cost the businessman in the town?
Well,
What they're going to have to pay?
they're going to
Because
have to.
I have a friend of mine, in 2016, his taxes were $33,000. In 2018, they're $42,000. Now, what's this going to do to my business?
0.5 of a mil.
What? I can't hear you, ma'am. Could you speak up, please?
0.55 of a mil.
Yeah. How about a guy that owns a lot of property in town and pays a lot of taxes, like 80 or 90,000? What's it going to cost him?
The same 0.55
You think so,
of
huh?
a mil.
Thank you very much. Oh, one other question. I didn't quite understand, but what is the town's bonding debt right now with the school debt that we're doing repairs? What is the total bonding debt?
Do you mean at this point in time?
Yeah, well, we're doing the schools, right?
Right,
What is
well-
the total bonding debt going to be with the schools, bonding the schools?
Okay, so as I was talking about, we're phasing debt in, but we're also retiring debt at the same
I
time.
understand that, ma'am. We retire debt, but as we go along, we bond again. So we really don't retire any debt.
So
As the time goes by, we bond more. People, you got to understand, you got to tell the people that.
okay, so when
Just give me a figure, ma'am, on the total bonding debt, not retired, what we owe right now.
we currently owe approximately $44 million.
That's with the school.
Without the school, you asked what we owe now.
What? I know they're not, but I'm asking what we got to bond for the school, sir.
Okay, so that's,
Well, you must know that.
yes, so the total we're going to bond for the schools is $49.9 million. That
Okay.
was
Okay.
right at the blue line on the graph here.
All right. Okay, but I don't go along with that schedule there you got with the paying the taxes. It's not the truth, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not finished yet, sir. I got quite a few things to say.
Oh, but it's just,
Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit. There's nobody in this town right now, more than I have, wanted a police department in this town. I brought it up years ago. I said we should join Waterford, combine with Waterford, and make one big police department in the whole area. We couldn't do that. Okay? We built a brand new school. We had a building down there that we just paid $700,000 for a brand new roof. We tore it down. A building that we could have used for a police department and everything else you could put in that. It was a good building. We could have spent a little money on it. But the town fathers tore it down. There's nobody in this town that fights more to keep taxes down for the people in this town. Now, I think Mr. Gardner, I talked to him, he came into my shop, we talked. He did a fantastic job on this layout, okay? But I think there's other ways that we can handle this. Now, I spent 2 days writing a little bit of how I feel about it, and I want to read it there. While I appreciate the work that went into this report, and I believe that Tommy Gardner should be thanked for his efforts, I can't help but consider this to be incomplete at the best. I also greatly appreciate at the pace, sorry about that, which the town is trying to use to research this decision. Moving quickly is not going to lead to a wise choice. We've been doing this for years, and all of a sudden, we got to do it. It's my opinion that the town needs to consider 4 things going forward. Number 1, location. We all know that the last time reclothing the police department was presented, the people of East Lyme felt that it was necessary that a new police station be centrally located, which I 100% go along with. I do not believe that it should be out there on West Main Street. It should be centrally located in the town. Okay, this is clearly not the case with the Honeywell building. Number 2, cost. This is the point that caught my interest. Nowhere in this report do we account for lost revenue. Currently, the Honeywell building, I thought it was paying around $43,000 a year. That would be removed from the tax rolls, which we have removed 1 building on Main Street already from the tax rolls, okay? But more importantly, I can't help but think of this property we left on the commercial rolls. Someone would buy it and possibly bring a new business to town. With that would come jobs and all of the other revenue that a large commercial property lot could potentially generate. You have to think about that. Also, with regards to the cost, the police station is currently in 7,500 square feet. We all understand that it's too small. It needs upgrading. But is it necessary to go to 30,000 square feet? Has anyone done a cost estimate on the maintenance? If 15,000 square feet will do, which will double the current size, why pay for 15,000 square feet you don't need? Number 3, the need. Nowhere do we have in the report any real discussion of the needs of the police properly servicing the town's people. We have no discussion of the most optimum location, and I fail to see anywhere in this report where the things were taken into considerations. This should be the first thing in planning that we sit down and address. Number 4, effect on the town. The town, in my opinion, would be better served to form a search committee to sit down, take these things up into consideration, to find the right location and build the right building that will last for at least 50 years. Town will have opportunity to acquire currently underutilized properties paying low dollars and mountain tax receipts. Acquire them and rebuild. I can think of 4 examples that myself and 2 other people came up with in a 2-day period that would reduce the cost, maintenance, and better serve East Lyme. I want to share one example with you, and I admit that I picked this one because the numbers help bolster my point. If you were to consider acquiring the former St. Matthias Rectory on the Boston Post Road, and couple it with the adjacent property that the town currently owns, you could take your acquisition cost from $2.7 million down to $150,000 and apply your $200 a square foot to the 15,000 square feet. You have a building that better serves the people for roughly half the cost. I say again, this is one of 4 examples we have found in a 2-day period. I am sure that a committee of realtors, business people could present many more opportunities that would fulfill the need in a better location for about half the money. Now I have another idea. How about we get a private concern to build this building to police specs and release it to the town for 35 years. And after 35 years, the town has an option to buy it. Now there's another way to go and save the taxpayers a lot of money. But this town has spent money on frills for a long time. Stuff that we've needed, we haven't done. We need a police department. I had a young lady come in my shop a couple months ago on a Saturday. And she said she went to the police department and it wasn't open. And I said to her, I said, we got a full-time police force and we're not open on Saturday and Sunday? It's ridiculous. We should have built a building long before we went to the police force. That should have been done. We were going to build it in Flanders on town property. People bitched about it. They didn't want it there. We went out to West Main Street across from the State Farm. That didn't fly. No. This building might be a good idea to do it there, but as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't belong there. It belongs centrally located. If I had my way, it would be on the Flanders Road, right in the center. You got 95, 395, Old Lyme, Waterford. That's what we got to do. Stop and think. I have always said, I would go along with building anything if we get the best buck for what the taxpayers got to pay. Thank you for listening to me. Merry Christmas to everybody.
How are we going to do this? You want us to address the parts of it that... There are some things we can't address. There are some of that we can address now, and anything we can't answer now, we'll be happy to look at, like the same... Is that mic on? If you want to address some of the building as far as building...
It's $200 a square foot. And the $50,000 that goes to Waterford.
But that said, Ron, we've had a search committee. We have looked at these towns like the Triumph building, not the towns, the locations and whatnot. This has been done.
I told you, I've been talking about this in 15 years, 20,
Sure,
15
sure.
years.
So have I. But here, let's have Tom.
Let me just respond, Ronnie, I thank you very much. I think they're all valid points, as we know. The leasing option is problematical. I've looked into that as well from other projects across the country, and there's been issues with A, coming up with an agreement, B, the building itself, and then the long-term cost to the taxpayer over 35 years, hypothetically or theoretically, if we look at the $6 million today as over 20 years it's paid for. If you went to a 35-year lease for a small building, I agree, it comes out to about $9 million. I'm just,
That's just an idea.
no, understood.
We could go less, we could go more.
But that was the thing on the top of my head. I just wanted to get back in. As far as, I just want to clarify one thing about this particular building, and some people thought we're rushing into it and so forth. The only reason we're doing this today at this particular juncture is because the building is going to go on the market March 15th. It's, I think the committee's opinion, or at least mine itself, is that I can honestly and clearly tell you that there's no other building within the confines of East Lyme that would be satisfactory for use as a public safety complex that meets all the criteria of critical infrastructure. Now, if this building was not available, I think we wouldn't be here tonight. If there were multiple buildings available in East Lyme that satisfied it, I think we could also stretch it out and say, let's take a little step back and think about it some more. But unfortunately, the timing isn't the best, and I agree with that, financially. Unfortunately, we have a crisis situation, as I mentioned earlier, a smoldering crisis with the current situation at 278 Main Street. As I also mentioned, God forbid that goes into a crisis mode. You don't want to be part of it. I can tell you that right now. We're trying to solve a problem with what we have options today. And if I come from the security world, I don't gamble and I don't hope on things. I take factually what we have in front of us and make an intelligent, logical decision from a long-term perspective. And if this building disappears, to quite frank with you and honest with you, I don't know what we would do. We would be behind the 8 ball more so than we are today. I think there's a lot of benefit. I think we gain from revenue. You mentioned about revenue, Ronnie. Over 10 years, we've been paying the town of Waterford $500,000. I'm not sure if we want to do that, and that's today's dollars. I'm not sure about tomorrow's dollars for the town of Waterford or whether they'll even entertain it furthermore. There's a lot of variables. And I think the only real pressure point is March 15th. If we don't act one way or another, I think we're out of luck. That's my personal opinion.
And just to address the tax that Honeywell pays, they pay about $45,000, $50,000. We're paying Waterford $50,000 a year to use their facility. So that's actually a watch. We have considered the revenue run. I mean, we have. What was it?
Well, I was going to mention, we have a lot of questions to get to. I was just going to mention a couple of things. It's $9 to $10 million to build a new building for 15 or 20,000 square feet. We put that slide up here already. So to have someone who's going to build a building for $9 or $10 million and then lease it back to the town, and it being cheaper than us buying a $6 million building that will last us 50 years, for me, that doesn't add up. Also, the current building has been maintained, and there was some stuff on social media that we purposefully let the building go so we could get to here tonight so we can get a chance. Listen, we've been maintaining the buildings, but after a while, buildings need to be redone, much like our schools. We've been maintaining those schools for decades, but they needed, each of them, all three of the ones that we're working on, needed a $12 million rehab. This police station right now needs, the current one we're in, needs us to invest in the building, a building that's not the right size and not in the right place based on evacuation situations, and never was. We need a new HVAC system. Our police worked without air conditioning for some of the summer. You heard the chief say, when the electricity went out downtown, and it does, we don't have a generator to keep the police in business. We have water coming up from the floor. Part of the building was built on a storm drain, an annex of that building. So they discovered it when Main Street flooded this year. And you saw the video. It was a little distracting when the chief was talking too. Water's coming up from the floor, comes through the bricks. The bricks need to be repointed on the building. Literally, the walls get wet when the wind blows from the ocean side. That's just to stay in the building, a building we shouldn't be staying in. And you heard all those reasons. I got to do something with the police. They can't be in that building unless we spend your good taxpayer money to patch things up on the tune of $500,000, $1 million on a building we still got to get out of. It's not ever meant to be a police building. There was a question, sir, and then Lisa after.
My name is Robert Van Cor. I live in Giant Sack Heights. I spent 24 and a half years as a police officer with the town of Glastonbury, retiring as a lieutenant. And I just retired after 18 and a half years with the Judicial Department as a bail commissioner. 14 of the years were in New London. And because of weekend and holiday coverage, I have been to every single police department in the eastern part of Connecticut, except Ledyard. It's a little too new. And Troop C and Talent. I managed to avoid that one. Now, the Honeywell building is a nice building, but I know we need a new police department. I cannot support the purchase of the Honeywell building due to its location. You have a flood zone at the 4 Mile River, which is just west of the Honeywell building. You have a flood zone at Rydebrook, which is just east. You got to take that into consideration as far as location. Also, it's nowhere near the demographics for the town of East Lyme. It's tucked in the southwest corner. The only thing really close to it is a package store and a summer campground. And also that in some of the conferences, the press conferences they've had, and some of the comments that have made, they point out that Interstate 95 and Route 156 would provide access. This is the same I-95 that shuts down for hours at a time 5-6 times a year. And it's the same Route 156 where all the Interstate 95 traffic goes when Interstate 95 is shut down. That's not an appropriate location to allow access. And the police need a centrally located building. yes, they're in their car, but they mentioned servers and dispatch and all those other needs. And for the officer who's coming down from Chesterfield, the end of Route 161, he's got to go all the way to the southwest corner. That's not appropriate. And when it comes to holding cells, Mr. Gardner mentioned, well, we won't have a lockup, we'll just have a holding cell. A holding cell is legally appropriate to hold someone during processing or someone who will be shortly released. If they're going to stay more than a couple of hours, they have to be in a legally sufficient holding area. That means you got to have security on all walls and ceilings. You have to put in a specialized plumbing arrangement. You need audio and video coverage. And the real kicker, you must have physically separate male and female holding cells. And if you have juveniles, which are 17 and 16 and younger, they have to have male and female facilities separate from the adult. That's a huge number. That is why, unless East Lyme is locking a lot more people up overnight than I think they are, it makes a lot of sense to per diem pay Waterford to house our prisoners. They got an excellent facility. I've been in it several times, very much underutilized, as will a holding facility for East Lyme be woefully underutilized. Yeah. As far as the evidence and security, property and evidence needs to be stored securely, but it does not have the same requirements as the armory, which has to be a pretty strongly reinforced, fireproofed environment. I really don't think this is it's a great building in the worst possible location that you could find in East Lyme. The Old Town Garage at Roxbury is an excellent location, or somewhere in the industrial park. Is it going to cost more money? I don't know if the Old Town Garage can be modified. Maybe not. If it can't, you're going to have to knock it down. But I would rather do that than put everything we've got into that corner where the Honeywell building is. And one other critical factor is radio communications. Will a radio operation at the Honeywell building have line of sight access to our primary public safety radio transmitters? You can only determine that by a professional engineering testing, and that has to be done in full foliage. Not now in winter, but in late April or May, because foliage has a drastic kick as far as propagation of radio waves. That's why the cellular phone companies are going crazy throwing towers up. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions and your service as a police officer. I'm going to address some of it, Chief.
I'm going to take two, and Mike's going to take the rest.
Okay. The couple things that I noticed was the 156 bridge is going to be raised 4 feet to get it above that flood zone.
State promise? Yep.
Yes.
Same state and $21 billion in debt?
There's a state plan now. It's already been engineered. They've already been in to see us, and we're talking about traffic detours and all that. That area over 4 Mile River is being raised 5 feet, sir. Being raised 5 feet. It will be an arch bridge, not the conduit, the culverts that go under the bridge now. They're going to remove that from the flood area because they do know that there's an evacuation issue with the 4 Mile River. The state is coming up to raise the road 5 feet and putting in over 4 Mile River. How about Brybrook? It's over 4 Mile River, so that access is going to be available. Plus, we're going to have, as you know, we're putting in an access through Colton Road, Capitol Drive. And that is happening, I believe, next summer.
Regarding the radio tower, the site is 80 feet above sea level. We plan on applying for a permit to put a tower of 150 feet on top of that 80 foot. The highest ridge line is at 100 feet. So you have 230 feet above sea level minus the 100. The tower would be 130 feet above the ridge line. That tower will look directly at the two other towers, one on the Boston Post Road in North Rybrook, and the other one at the landfill over on Roxbury Road. The propagation studies have not been done yet or engineered, but initially that's what we're told, that it'll enhance the coverage for that particular area and it will not degrade it. The propagation study will, we could have had that information for you, I apologize.
You had a propagation study performed.
No, we have not had it done, but we had a preliminary information.
I can guess too.
What's that? Well,
Both guessing.
as I said, the tower will stand 130 feet above the ridgeline, looking line of sight right at the Roxbury Road and the one on Boston Post Road.
I was heavily involved when Glastonbury went from low VHF to 800 megahertz. And a lot of assumptions that were made after testing was done were invalidated.
He has more expertise than me, believe me.
One study we've run in the past is actually putting an antenna on Brybrick Road on one of the light towers on the soccer field. By putting the light tower on there, we have direct line of sight back to our Roxbury Road side, which gives us a better coverage area for the Giants Neck, West Main Street area. So we'd be up higher, approximately up about 100 feet higher, and it's direct line of sight. At about 100 foot, when we were up on the, actually climbed the tower on Roxbury Road, you can see all of Long Island Sound and the Fort Lovett Road.
You know, it's
And we're UHF.
but until a professional propagation study,
And it was done before by communications. Yes, we can get that done. That could be done.
you should do it before you spend the money for the building.
Just to address the holding cell evidence, all of that certainly would be part of the design of that area. Everything would be built to the current code and the current standard for those holding cells. You know, fortunately, when we designed the Ledger building, I was heavily involved in that. Those holding cells, which we have in that building, which are 3, are sufficient to house the number of prisoners that come in there. Now, the point of saying holding cells versus jails, there was a lot of miscommunication or misinformation out there thinking it was a long-term jail facility. So the thought was for the general public to make it very clear, it's not looking anything more than holding somebody until they go to court. But those standards exist that you're talking about. You're talking about a different conversation with what some people thought were long-term jail.
If you hold somebody overnight,
Yeah.
you got to put them in.
That's what we're building, sir.
Nothing would be built that doesn't meet the current standard for those cells. That's part of that construction and part of that plan. Anything that you build that's going to house any prisoners, whether it be 3 hours, whether it be 10 hours, whether it be 4 days, has to be built to that standard. Yes. And the same thing for the evidence holding. Evidence holding has, the evidence processing and evidence room, they have standards also that have to be maintained. So those are all part of that plan, which has been part of that estimate for what the construction is going to be.
I have a follow-up question.
You should get on the
Holding cell
microphone.
for processing.
Sir, you should get on the microphone.
The holding cell that you would use, a holding area while you process a prisoner, if for some reason that they've got to be kept overnight, or it's a Friday night and it's a 3-day holiday weekend, does that happen often really in East Lyme?
So we have had, up until the end of November, 198 criminal arrests. The number, I don't have the number off the top of my head for how many have stayed the entire weekend. I would probably venture a guess you're talking in the area of 20, 25 that have spent an entire weekend. So your long-term holdees, so to speak, are a minimal number.
Well, that's why I don't know why East Lyme would want to go for the expense but not continue to house at Waterford. It's on the way to the courthouse.
But that's also an assumption that Waterford has entered a temporary agreement with us for 3 years. That's making an assumption they would be interested in maintaining that long-term.
We share a boat. We share an ACO.
It certainly a conversation, but when we entered, or my understanding, because it was prior to me coming in, that agreement was made as a short-term solution until East Lyme obtained a building.
Have we explored making it a long-term one?
There's certainly many things in this building. If we have to get a building, that's certainly part of it. So that's part of a long-term discussion. But again, at the same time, let's say looking long-term to maintain something that you don't have an agreement from would be difficult to do at this point. So we're looking, we need a facility. We have a desperate need for a facility. Certainly to properly plan that facility would have all the infrastructure to maintain our agency and department long-term. And we're looking, as we've said, a 50-year building. Well, it's 50 years of maintaining the police department.
One more follow-up, just a bit off. There were a lot of press articles. In fact, there was one not too recently about Waterford and New London, and there was one with East Lyme, sharing and going into a joint public safety answering point. What happened to that?
The PSAP conversation that predated me. That has not resurrected. However, there are current conversations on the radio system about integrating the three communities on the same radio system. So that conversation is still happening. Certainly through that conversation, there's other opportunities communications-wise. The PSAP conversation has not, to my knowledge, happened for several years, which again predated me being here. But certainly, that is something the state may resurrect, looking at consolidating those PSAPs.
That would be nice. It would be nice, too, if we could all get together and consolidate holding facilities for several towns.
Well, I think the ideal situation would be to have a county lockup, but we don't have that. And that option from
we don't have any counties.
Well, at the same time, there are very few agencies that share those. We're one of the few that actually do that right now.
Thank you.
So first, I just want to thank the members of the police force and the fire service that are here servicing our town. We're grateful to you for your service. Couple points of clarification that, Anna, when I finish my remarks, I'd be grateful if you could flesh out a few details. I know I, and maybe some other folks in the public, were concerned about the number for the public safety building up there being 9.1 million. I know we've been talking about 6 million, the slides say 9.1. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit when I'm finished, so that's a little confusing. When we talked about the mill rate increase, that slide, I saw that as the annual tax increase for the assessed value of those homes, which intrinsically to me seems very light. I know we spoke about a 0.55 mil increase, and I know Mr. Rando's question was based on how much are his taxes going up. So if we could add a little more granularity to that, I think many of the questions from the public are based about how this will affect their taxes. I wasn't sure we were as clear as we could have been with that tonight. And as a member of the Board of Finance, I have to be full disclosure here. I'm concerned about the timing of this. I'm going to reserve most of my questions for when the presentation is made to the board. But just generally speaking, I do want to say that we had, this public safety complex was in our capital plan for a couple of years. And unanimously, the board asked to move this out to 2021. And it was approved by the board, and it was delivered to the town by Mark, our first selectman. That happened 2 years in a row. It came back in the capital plan the next year. I guess this is more of a process question. I'm sort of thinking that our Board of Finance has some jurisdiction or some responsibility over our fiscal prudence when we unanimously make a decision that a project of this magnitude needs to move out a couple of years. I'm expecting that our decision will be respected, and I'm confused as to why we're discussing this now. It almost feels like our vote on the capital plan was a bit of a panacea, and I'm sorry to say that, but it doesn't really feel very good as a member of the board to sort of be mowed over and have this move forward as much as it did. So I'd appreciate a general response on that topic, and Anna, if you could put a little granularity to the other questions I asked, I'd appreciate it.
But this is going to be, so when we project the rates out, we use the current rate for bonds, and then we make increases for how many years it's out. I have to check on the number of basis points that we use. So it's a higher rate than we're actually getting now. So it could be this amount, it could be less, it could be more, a little bit more. And did you have another question? Oh, okay, so, so that particular slide, what I was showing is in this current fiscal year, our debt service is at $5.3 million. In fiscal year 24-25, that would be the peak year of debt service in our budget, and it would be at $6.5 million. So, you know, it's about a $1.2 million debt increase. We try to keep the debt in our budget like as flat as possible over time. So back to we phase in new debt and we retire existing debt. And so in doing that, when the increase in debt is about $1.2 million, that equates to a 0.55 mil increase. So and that's what this shows, because this would be the peak year of our debt service. What would show up in the budget, close to the $6.6 million.
I understand that that's all our taxes would go up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's hard for me to understand or to accept that if my home's assessed at $100,000, that my taxes are only going to go up $20 for the year for this building.
So what this slide is showing is for the police project only.
Right.
Over the life of the debt, the average annual payment is, I believe, $437,000. And so this is the impact it would have on a property assessed at these values. That's only speaking to the proposed public service facility. It's not
Right, I understand.
speaking to all debt.
So this is just the marginal increase for the public safety building. And we would carry the debt for this for, was it 5 years? I don't have the chart in front of me, but.
The debt would be paid off over 21 years, because we're taking the debt on over 2 fiscal years. So, and there would be 20-year bonds.
It'd be a 20-year bond for this?
Yes.
So it's $20. Okay, so this is what I think people want to understand. And we have high confidence in these numbers, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what we would, if your home's assessed at $100,000, your additional tax burden per year, just for this for this project, currently carrying $9.1 million, including interest and all that, is $20 a year.
Over 21 years.
For 21 years.
For this project only.
For only this project. Okay, great, thanks. Oh, so yeah, what was my other question? My other question, maybe this could go to Mark, that I spoke about the capital plan, and I'm unclear on the process and the relationship with the Board of Finance and the First Selectman.
I know I was in the same room with you, Lisa. And I remember a completely different conversation. One that I brought this to the Board of Finance and said, there might be an opportunity this coming year to get a police station for half the price. And does the town wait until the perfect time? And by the way, when is a good time to spend $12 million on a police station? I don't know. But there might be an opportunity to to get into a police station and extra municipal room, which we're going to need in the next 50 years. And if that comes up, I'm going to have to bring it to you. And although everybody said, let's push it out at the Board of Finance level, and it was a heated night, we also had the conversation that we can always come back and introduce it to the town. So that capital plan is not chiseled in stone. Nothing on that capital plan is chiseled in stone. It never is. It's a plan. And plans change as opportunities are presented. It's my job as a first selectman to present opportunities to the community. The police commission been working hard looking at different locations and opportunities. And ideally, something in the middle of the town, although I don't know why the police can't drive to where they are. They're on the shore right now, and it hasn't hurt the people on Whistletown Road. They're getting adequate police protection, and we're getting to calls on the north part of town from Main Street, wiggling through the 2-lane road that is Flanders Road. And we showed on that map, yes, 95, but yes, 4 Mile River Road. and yes, North Brybrook Road, and yes, down Main Street. There's many ways to get to calls. And 95, as a mess that it is still not a mess more than 95% of the time. It's not locked up bumper to bumper more than 5% of the time. That comes from the DOT. That comes from you and me. If it was 90% of the time, that means one every 10 days for 24 hours, you couldn't travel on it. I mean, it's using common sense logic, right? So, yes, we know Sunday night's a mess, Friday night's a mess, and during the summer, it's a mess almost every day. But the cops also have blue lights, and they can get down to the breakdown lane, or they can go around. Because when 95's locked up, so is 156, and so is Route 1. And our cops can't get from Main Street up to Chesterfield Road now on a busy day. It's slow traffic. So there's alternate routes. So this is the new Honeywell. We can go up 4 Mile River Road to Route 1 and be there in 11 minutes. Right now, from Main Street on the same day, it would take 12 minutes. Capital plans are a plan. And when an opportunity presents itself, I have to bring it forward. If it fails, it fails. If it's rejected, it's rejected. But we need to do something. And we've been talking about it for 14 years. And we can spend $12 million in the center of town. We can do 6 here and have plenty of municipal room for other things to happen. We have a bus depot in our town that's on our aquifer that was supposed to be temporary. Remember? Oh, we're going to park the buses here for now. And we'll find a place to put them. Diesel engines are sitting on our aquifer in what was filled in wetlands area. They don't belong there. We have 17 acres that we could fit at Honeywell to put the buses at. And we can gas them right around the corner at Public Works, because that's where our tanks are. You know, I'm going to throw it out there. The people in the south part of town with the small little quarter-acre lots have been looking for a dog park. Maybe you get people involved in coming out to the property, to the dog park. We've already raised money for it. We just don't have a place to put it. Someone mentioned, how about a kayak launch in the southern part of the Honeywell facility? Bring the public out to their building. Because 4 Mile River's there, and with that new bridge, you're going to be able to go all the way out. But the municipal area, the building is big. It's 30,000 square feet. We think we're going to have 5 or 10,000 extra square feet there that I can move other departments into in time. This town's going to need space. I can't put another soul in the town hall. The library, anytime they buy a book, they got to throw one out. We built that library too small. It was inadequate a couple of years in. If I move Parks and Rec out of the community center and the Register of Voters and even the youth center and put them over at the Lily B School, I have that whole wing that I can spread the library into and avoid building a $4 million wing off the back, which is in the capital plan. Nobody wants to build that. We have a huge senior population that's ballooning, and our senior center can't put on the programs that seniors are asking for because we don't have the room in that building. Those seniors are the same ones that vote for the school budget, and we do plenty for our kids, and we should do plenty for our kids. We have great schools, and that's what supports our property taxes. But we got to take care of the seniors too, and the people that use the library, which are sometimes the underserved. The people that need free Wi-Fi, and they don't own a computer, and they get their publications from the library because they can't afford it. Our library is busier than ever. And this could create those opportunities. We didn't present that tonight because I don't want you to lose focus of what we're talking about. We need a police station. But this gives us options for growth in the future without building other buildings. Without it solves the needs. So to answer your question, I think I sort of answered it, Lisa. This is an opportunity. It was on the capital plan. We adhere to that capital plan, but things come on and things come off. And a lot of things on that capital plan won't be presented because we've changed the plan and decided we couldn't afford it. Maybe because of state cutbacks. Maybe because a dump truck lasted an extra year than we thought it would last. So that's my answer.
Ron, go ahead. Do you want to go from?
Based on traffic, if everyone's coming from the police department, they're going to go where the least traffic is.
Yeah, but if you're going to send them up Brybrook Road? Now, you're going to send somebody up there doing 60, 70 miles an hour? Somebody backs out of a driveway, there's a kid playing in the street? No, you can't do that.
Sir, and
You're either going to have to go up 4 Mile River Road, Main Street, and up to Flanders.
unfortunately, when police officers are on the road every day,
No, that's not what I asked you, sir. I asked if you had to send somebody from the police department. How would you send them to
and
Flanders?
you're talking about the dangers of going on a road, lights and sirens, such as North Brybrook. My answer is officers do that on a daily basis. They drive Roxbury Road, North Brybrook Road, Society Road, not just state roads to get to calls. They do it lights and sirens. They do it safely and expeditiously, just like they would going up Flanders Road, lights and sirens, weaving through heavy traffic all the time. So I understand your question, but we don't always have the luxury of using a wide state road with limited traffic to get to calls. That's the nature of emergency services, whether it be police, fire, ambulance. We're all getting safely to calls as quickly as we can, but also as safely as we can. So I can't say I'm going to tell them, because that's not how police work operates. I'm not going to say you're going to go on this road. They're going to make a determination based on where they are at the time, but you're saying at the police department. They're going to go the quickest way based on what their knowledge is of traffic, what their knowledge is of those roads, time of day. I know for myself, 30 years in police work, I will go a different way if I know the school buses are getting out, because I know I want to avoid kids getting off the bus versus the middle of the night or the early morning. Everything is determined by the time and situation of what's happening.
So if we were centrally located in the town,
And
you could go
Yep.
Flanders or Niantic, and you wouldn't have any problem.
No, certainly. And in an ideal world, we would be centrally located and money would be no
That's
out.
where the police department should be. If I was going to build it, it would be on Flanders Road. Okay? Thank you.
Hi, Fred Santoro. I live in the Rose Cliff subdivision in the East Lyme section of the town. I had two quick questions. One, the existing, I know that you're going to try to consolidate the services all down at the police station. And what would they do with the existing 911 facility there? And the other question is there any idea or is there any need really for a community policing station in the East Lyme section of town?
Currently, one of the 911 center currently would possibly be turned back over to the Board of Ed. That property is actually located on the Board of Ed property and was taken from them back when the firehouse was built. Sorry, it's kind of hard to say. Currently, when you look up the property now for 171 Boston Post Road, it brings you to the entrance of the high school. So they have a need for outlying groups that potentially could go there. Coastal Connections, I'm trying to use, is that better now? I'll hold it up. Coastal Connections, it could be the maintenance department, whatever fits their need.
And as far as a substation, that's very determined upon if we see a need. If we do see a need that we're going to need a substation, it would have to be somewhere that's not staffed. That is, an officer could go there with a victim or witness to interview them. But certainly when we do that, we need to find an adequate space. I know, some agencies have been able to do that successfully, usually in town-owned buildings. So that opportunity, if we found the need or we found the opportunity in one of the town buildings, we certainly would explore that.
My name is Peter DeRose. I live on Lovers Lane, and I just wanted to ask a couple clarifying questions. In Ann's presentation with the bond rating, I came in here with the question that I understood that our bond rating had been dropped, and Ann, what you're saying is with the new Standard & Poor that our bond rating is remaining the same, which means our interest rates that we're paying are remaining the same? Is that, I just want to make sure that that's a true, that I'm hearing that correctly, because that's one of the big concerns in financing the police department. And I think the other question that I came in here with, and I wanted to make sure was answered, is that we're on a time limit for this arrangement because there's opportunity.
Honeywell wants to sell the building.
The building will go on the market? Is that what will happen? Okay. Okay, so we're kind of pressed in on the time, because
we all agree the timing is terrible.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity that's presenting itself. That's why we're here. If it gets voted down, it gets voted down. But it's our job to present this as an opportunity, and there is a time frame involved.
That's the reason for
Correct.
It felt pressured, feels pressured, and I know you're getting some feedback.
Absolutely. No, that is absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with regards to our bond rating of AA with Standard & Poor's, that's the equivalent of what we previously had with Moody's, a AA2. So in the AA category, there are both agencies have three tiers, and where we are rated with Standard & Poor's is the equivalent of the AA2 with Moody's.
Woman in back.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, I would just like to say, I think everybody's losing the fact that these people have to work under these conditions. Do any other town employees work under these conditions? And what's the health of our police department? How's their respiratory status? I mean, you know, there's got to be black mold, fungus. I mean, I'm looking at it from a medical standpoint. Are you going to assure me that in 10 years my husband's not going to come down with some fungal infection? Or, I mean, does any other town employee have a 5-gallon bucket at their desk collecting water? Does it affect anybody else? All right, so you have to repair this. And where is OSHA in on this? How are you guys allowing this? I think you guys are losing sight of you're so worried about the money. What about the health and the welfare of the people that protect all you people? That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
God bless you. It's the 400-pound gorilla in the corner of the room. Yeah, that's an issue. And we're pulling up rugs, and underneath the rug is not. We've had the air. We had Mystic Air Quality come in and test for mold. There isn't any airborne mold. There is mold throughout the building, in ceiling tiles and under rugs and in walls. It's not an airborne situation yet. I'm very concerned about that, and that's why the police have to be moved. I got to put them somewhere. I'll put them in trailers in a parking lot, but I got to put them somewhere. And to answer your question, there's no, well, listen, if you've been through the town hall, it's not the Taj Mahal, okay? We don't look for luxury, but we don't have buckets throughout the building. We had, we have flat roofs there too, and we did have an issue where the roof leaked last year and blew out some ceiling, but we cleaned it up, and it was one spot, and that is typical of flat roofs. That's just the history of flat roofs. But it's much more than that. It's coming up from the floor. It's coming through the walls, the HVAC and all the other stuff. Yes, we do not have a professional space there. This is really the only space in town that operates so unprofessionally and doesn't meet any standard or any checkbox at all. Thanks for pointing it out. We want to get out of there before there is an OSHA issue, and we're hoping that we do that soon. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Nee. I'm on Riverview Drive. First, I think it seems to be consensus that we all agree that it needs to be a public safety building, a new one. I think it's how we get there is really truly what we're trying to figure out as a town. For me, going through this, I think I liked a little bit more history. If we were going to have another town hall, maybe some different options. What are the different buildings you've looked at? What are the different ones that are open right now that could fit, and go through a couple different scenarios and show us that versus just build versus renovate a building. That would be nice for us to have different options. The other thing too for me is I think Mr. Nickerson, you were talking about potential different offices moving there. So I'd like to understand sort of the dominoes of if we build this, if it's this many square feet, what will we put into that building as a town? And then what would that open up for, in particular, the community center, and would that save us money in the long run? In particular, if we're going to open that up to different offices, I think location becomes even more key to our citizens to be able to have access to that building. So I'd like to see your long-term range view of not just for the public safety building, but for our whole town, what we're planning to put in there.
Good questions. I don't have an answer of what I would move over to the Honeywell building. I would move departments that don't have a lot of customer interaction, maybe some backroom stuff especially. We thought about if you move Parks and Rec out of the library building, can you move them over there? Not really. You can do the back room Parks and Rec, but I still need a front counter somewhere where the public comes in to buy their beach passes and sign up for their yoga classes, etc. So there's plenty in our town hall, our IT. There's building and zoning, although that does have some interaction with the public. We have a real space need down there where we have to keep hard copies. We can't digitize them. We can't make them electronic files. And if you've been in our building department, we have files and paper up to the ceiling and really kind of run out of room. We have to keep all those big blueprint files for years and years and years. That might be a facility that goes over there. I can just tell you that we do have the space. I wouldn't plan on doing anything immediately. Okay, although we can't fit another soul working in our town hall, we also don't have the need right now to push them out. But as time goes, we would look at the needs of the town. Listen, it's a want, not a need, for the library to have more space. Okay, it is a want. We have a library, it's adequate. We have a senior center, it's adequate. It'd be great to give them more, and in time we might be able to do that. I will tell you that the extra square footage in the new building is move-in ready. Move a couple walls around and all. I mean, it's move-in ready. It's got everything ready to go. So that might answer your question. We don't need to build another town hall. It's not a palace. It's a solid building with big, nice, strong bones, and that will last us. And we might have to redo the roof at some point. But no, that building's going to be our town hall. There was a question, well, why don't we move the police to that building and then build a town hall somewhere else more centralized? The Masonic Temple is like, we all think about that. It's not for sale. It's still there as a viable organization. It's not big enough for a town hall. I think it's 7,000 or 8,000 square feet, the Masonic Temple building. We'd have to buy other land next to it, adjoining to it, and then build out for that building. But the current town hall is in that 2-mile radius, the evacuation radius. So we really wouldn't want our emergency services in the town hall. But it was a good idea until we looked into it a little further. We looked at many places in town. And the bottom line is we buy something that's built and ready to go. It won't need much. 3.2 is on the high side. Or we wait and we find a location central. Maybe it's at the end of Roxbury Road and Romagna Road, and we build a building there. But it's going to cost you a lot more money. I think this is an option that saves us money. We're a Yankee town. We like doing things, we didn't build the $85 million school plan. It was probably the better plan. Build some new schools that will last us 50 years or beyond. But we didn't do that. We went to the renovation plan instead, and we went down to $36 million, $33 million after state reimbursement. It's the town we're in. It's the town we live in. And this is how we come up with our ideas, is looking for opportunities.
If I could just clarify one thing. As far as the list of the properties, like a big one that's come up is the Triumph building as far as ready-made buildings, which is in the center of town. But that's a 60,000 square foot building that would require much more renovation inside. That's why we looked at it. it's just too big. I mean, this building, we didn't build it to 30,000 feet so that we can have other town agencies in there. It's an existing 30,000 square feet building. It's bigger than we need. We're trying to come up with other ways to make use of the space that are financially viable for the town and work out for everybody. Just to answer that one question. But as far as other properties, we looked at Roxbury Road. I mean, as a commission, we basically decided to present the cost of building a building on any piece of land is going to stay fairly the same, minus the acquisition of the land. So Roxbury Road is town-owned land, so there'd be zero acquisition costs for sure, but the building costs would stay the same. If we bought land, it gets even more expensive. So that's why we kind of presented it the way we did of this is what it costs us to build a building, a generic building, and then this is what this opportunity is. Is this a perfect building? No, but it is an opportunity, and it's up to you all to decide what we do with it, or if anything.
And the cost of that $10 million to build that new building is just for a 20,000 square foot building for the police, EMS, EOC, and dispatch center. It's not growing room for the town. So at some point, we're going to need room for the town hall. We might need room for the library and senior center. The next generation of East Limers might decide that they need more space in their library. This solves that problem because it comes with that extra space.
Good evening, Pat Larkin. It seems to me like the Police Commission has been working on this for 18 months and has done a lot of work, a lot of studies, a lot of looking at everything. But if you look at the Police Commission agenda meetings and meeting minutes, there's no mention of this at all. So I think it would have been better for the Police Commission to have this publicized that we were looking at this, so they could have gotten more public input during the 18-month research that we did, rather than springing it on us, in November and saying we have to be done by March.
That's a very good point. The problem was that Honeywell did not want us making public the fact that they were considering selling the building in the beginning. Well, we've been working on the need for a police building. We have a building subcommittee that met and has... I'd have to look at it. Well,
independent, Mr. Gardner isn't on the police commission. He was just doing work as a citizen. And we do have a subcommittee that was out there looking at spaces and it's crunching the numbers. We've been looking certain Pat, just let me. Right, we went into executive session about 6 times on this building. It was being. And we had several meetings. We went into executive session, sir, and it's listed. I'll produce them for you, okay? Okay. We went into executive session to discuss the negotiations of this building for several times, and as well as people have met with Honeywell and toured other sites all over town. You can't release an Mr. Larkin, you can't release information on this until you've completed a negotiation. We talked about that publicly. Okay. We've been talking about it for years. We've been talking about it for I'll let you keep talking. We've been talking about this publicly, and when we went independent, we got up there and said, this doesn't mean we don't need a police station. In fact, we do need a police station. We talked about it. Some towns put the dog before the tail wags the dog, and sometimes the dog wags the tail and whatever. Listen, Montville built their police station and can't go independent. They can't get a vote. Pat, let me just finish a comment. Okay? We put out we successfully went independent, and all through that said, we still need a police station. When we sat down with the schools and said, we're going to build public schools, we always said, and we need to build a police station. Your wife sat in those meetings, we talked about it.
Ken Payne, Spinnaker Drive. Obviously, if some of this information had come out in bits and pieces, there would have been lots more questions and a lot more difficult answers if you hadn't thought it all the way through. I would just like to congratulate the commission for doing an outstanding job in presenting a complete picture that we can make a good judgment on. I think you've done a terrific job, and I'm very thankful for
that. Right there, Sam, that's fine. Then we'll do the gentleman back.
Ooh, sorry. Hi. My name is John Bialons, Jr. I agree that the police department and the public safety department needs a better building and everything. I agree with that totally. But this golden opportunity to get this Honeywell building is the biggest waste of our money and our time. It's just, it brings up something that our former first selectman did, our golden opportunity to buy Darrell's Ridge. He spent $4 million on that piece of property, and what has the town done with it? Plant trees up there, they put in their cell tower finally up there. They were going to put the water tower up there, but everybody complained. So they did the logical thing, bring it over to Lombardi so that he could build his buildings because he needed a tower over there to supply for his sprinkler system. Nice thinking of this town. And also, the first gentleman that got up, he's in the middle right there, I can't remember his name, nothing has been mentioned about the renovation of the 20 to 30% of this existing building. I would like to know what's going to be consisted of that. If this building is so perfect, why are they spending $3 million to renovate it? That, sounds very sensitive.
The explanation is we would, approximately two-thirds of the building, this is a Class A office building currently being occupied by Honeywell, and currently 100% in operation. There's engineering workers there. It's an R&D building. So approximately two-thirds of the building is already finished off and operating and so forth. The other one-third, I'll call it one-third, is the secure area where the prisoners will be processed and holding cells, armory, the evidence processing. We need to put a radio tower up. There will be a generator installed, fencing in the back. Generally speaking, from a project of this magnitude, it's a very small construction project as compared to a building such as Newtown is doing, where they have to renovate the entire building and add 4,500 square feet for $14.5 million. So the building itself, as I mentioned, is a Class A office building with a one-acre of parking ready to go. I've been through the building many times, and I'm very surprised at how well it's maintained for the environment, the office environment. When you see buildings, sometimes they need a lot of work, as you might mention. So the renovation budget at 3.2 is not to exceed that, and hopefully we can do it less based upon some construction costs that we're going to get bids on. But I think from all the buildings that I've looked at, for an example, the Triumph building at the Industrial Park probably would be a great location, but the building is 57,000 square feet, the ceilings are 22 feet high. The concrete walls are only 12 feet high, and then the rest of it's corrugated steel. As you probably know, it was used for manufacturing aircraft parts or something, fabrication and manufacturing. They were dumping the oil into the ground where they bored out the concrete. The concrete floors were about 12 to 14 inches thick. To renovate that particular building, I would think, right off the top of my head, you're talking $20 million because it was never, ever intended to be other than a fabrication and manufacturing building. So going back again, looking at all the options available, I think from a taxpayer's perspective and an operational aspect, looking at this particular building as compared to other opportunities, I just didn't see any comparison between any buildings in this one. Did I answer your question on the renovation side of the house?
A little bit, but for what you said, I don't see how it's going to cost $3 million.
It might not be until we get some cost
Yeah, but I
estimate.
don't know why you scare the people by saying $3 million.
Well, I think we had to put a number in for something until we get some...
$1.5 million.
Yeah, we think the maximum, we never go back and ask for more money. We think the maximum would be $3.2 million. We have to bring the building up to public safety building code. Like if you built a widget factory, you build it to a code, but it's a public safety building, so it has to withstand certain wind velocity and earthquake proof and all that. We have to do that with the things in the roof. I'm not a builder, can you tell? We're going to put an elevator in. We're going to make this building ADA compliant, so anyone who goes, whether it's a worker or a visitor or a citizen to the building, will be able to access both levels. It doesn't currently have an elevator. So we're going to make that ADA compliant as well. But we think we can do it a lot less than $3.2 million. We're not, this
Yeah,
isn't
but
going
my
to be...
point is that you're pushing all this on to everybody that has to be done within 3-4 months. You know what, just like with that Daryl's Pond, if we spent $4 million on that, if we waited another year or 2 years, we probably could have bought it for $2 million from the bank. We did?
There was another bidder on that.
But it's just that the idea is that you guys just shove everything down our throats.
Okay.
And how do you want to say, you want us to absorb it and everything else. Why don't we go back to when we were going to build the police station and everything else over here behind the high school? Why can't we do it there?
That plan was never forwarded, and we did consider that land. Sir, it's $10 to $12 million to build a new one. This is 6. We don't need a whole year to talk about 6 versus 10 or 12. And that's the bottom line. This facility works for 6. We can get a facility in a better location for, call it 12. So it's a $6 million question. Do we spend 6 now or 12 later in a better location? It's really that simple. But I need to do something immediately with the police. So if we don't do the 6, I got to put them somewhere else temporarily.
Wow.
I got to go in and fix that building or put them somewhere else. It's going to cost a lot of your taxpayer money to do that.
Well,
I'd rather find a permanent solution.
You rented it only for $1, and I don't know why Dominion ain't fixing some of the repairs themselves. I don't know what kind of agreement you guys have with the lease.
Yeah, they're not responsible for putting capital money into
So why
that
didn't
building.
they just keep fixing everything, when it started happening? Like put
The
roof on or
relationship is
something?
not for them to put in $1 million of capital so we can rent it for $1. They're not going to do that. It's really a tear-down building. We would suspect.
I don't know why they don't use that as a substation and build another police station up here.
We don't need 2. We're too small a town to have 2 police stations. Sir, that's a knockdown building, and our private and public partnership with Dominion is going to bring economic development to Main Street. I would suspect someone's going to come in. It's probably $500,000 to buy that building, buy that property to some private developer. Will come in. We'll realize the profit on that as a town, working with Dominion. We're going to use state cleanup funds to clean up the property. As we know, there's PCBs in the ground there. The lady whose husband, she's worried about OSHA. We also have a polluted site on that. We didn't even talk about the PCBs in the ground that we know are there. We need to clean up the site. But someone's going to put in a 3-decker building there, maybe some condos or apartments up top, put some retail at the bottom or a restaurant. It's going to be a viable economic driver in our town.
Yeah, but the only thing I'm going to repeat again is why can't we just wait and maybe nobody's ever going to buy that Honeywell and we can get it cheaper and do it that way?
You're right, sir. That is a risk. Other people have looked at the building. They know it is going for sale.
Right.
Electric Boat is looking for office space in our area. Okay? I know that for a fact, right? They're going to be building a whole lot more subs. They're looking for office space. and warehouse space. This building offers both. And there are some other companies that are looking at that building. We have the first option on it. That's all.
Okay, all right. I know the town's growing, and I know that Costco's is supposed to be coming here. I know the new complex that just built, I think it's Gateway, they want to build 120 to 200 units more than what they have. And I just recently heard that there's a 800-unit complex that's going to be going through. If you buy this building, is that going to be big enough if the police station has to expand?
Yeah. Oh, jeez. I knew it was going to do it. Sorry, Paul. It's gone now, huh? Yes, it will be big enough, and that gives us that room. That's that flexibility we're talking about. Costco won't cost us, I mean, we might have to put another cop on. The apartments, we already have 280 up there. They're putting in another 120. Frankly, if development happens on Oswegatchie Hills, and as you know, I've been volunteering in this town for 18 years, and that was my first introduction to town politics. Is Landmark was looking to put 1,500 units at the time up on Oswegatchie Hills. It's like a tenth of the town would just grow, it would be exponential growth in our town. But that building, good question, would handle, and we have room to grow. The idea is to have room to grow. The idea is not to build a building that satisfies our needs today. We did that with the library.
Thank you. Whoa, this is hot. Steve Larson. I'm sorry I missed Anna's comments earlier, but I did read the Moody's report on our rating, our debt rating, and what I found interesting is that there were three major reasons why they downgraded us. One was our level of debt burden. Two was our level of reserves. We've spent some of our reserves over the last few years and have not added to them. And three, the instability of state funding to the town. So I guess one rating, another rating, those are all objective, real findings. Whether we have to use Moody's or not is almost immaterial. Their findings are an objective look at the financial health of the town, which we should take into account as we look at a project like this. So my question has to do with regionalization. And my question is, somewhere along the line I heard, well, maybe Old Lyme would be interested in partnering with us. Is that a realistic option?
At this point, Old Lyme is still trying to decide what they want to do. We're looking at this building as an East Lyme public complex. If Old Lyme does come on board and regionalize with us, it would really help. Be great. They would contribute parts of the costs and the maintenance and whatnot. But right now, you've been negotiating. It's a possibility, but we're not counting on it.
Well, I guess I would take the position that, because we've heard about regionalization on and off in this town ever since I got active in politics, and it seems like it's a very difficult lift unless you're dealing with animal control. I think that it's, we're in a difficult situation within the state, and I think we have to be much more aggressive about regionalization and make a project like this contingent on having an agreement with Old Lyme, because that would do several things. Besides moving us forward on regionalization, it would address the very issues that Moody's was concerned about. It would deal with debt burden, and it would deal with the financial health of the town before incurring the additional debt. Thank you.
Yeah, Thanks, Lisa. No doubt about it. It would have been nice if Old Lyme had punched that ticket a little quicker. I don't think it's going to happen, not initially. I agree with you with regionalization, but boy, we are so set in our ways in New England, especially here in Connecticut. Our 169 silo towns. If I came here tonight and said option B is to pull the police out of town and do a joint facility in Waterford. We already used the jails temporarily. I think that agreement will be a lot more expensive if we go forward because we're not really sharing in the full burden of the cost in Waterford. And we would need to do that. But that will be our headquarters over in Waterford. Maybe we don't combine, maybe we do. Sorry, Chief. We'll still find a job for you. Maybe just use facilities. But now let's talk about location. Now you don't even have a police station in town. Now you got it over there. Now listen, we were regionalized for 50 years. We were a resident state trooper town. All our records went to the troop. Every prisoner went to barracks out on 395. Yeah, on 395. Yeah, well, Steve.
I appreciate your comments, but I really do think that it's not about the 169 towns anymore. We've got to hold our elected officials accountable for really making regionalization work. We can't afford the infrastructure being repeated time and time again in every single town. And, if you were anywhere outside of Connecticut and talking about whether Waterford or Old Lyme was too far away to have a police department, you would be laughed at, okay? We've got to break these barriers down. We cannot afford the path that we're taking. Thank you.
Agreed. And agreed, I mean, again, if Jeff Newton's here tonight, our superintendent of schools, if he came up and said, I got a plan to save you money, we're going to combine with Montville and Waterford, and we're going to have one school district. It's going to save us a lot of administrative costs, and we're going to have one school system. It doesn't, as New Englanders, it feels real funky. Now in Florida and other places, that's how they do it. You have county school systems in Georgia, but you just don't do it in New England. I agree. To get this pendulum to swing the other way in Connecticut, we're going to have to figure out a way to provide municipal government with shared resources. There's just no way out of this box. Other questions?
Hi, I'm Eric Straub. I live on 61 Corey Lane here in town. I've been in Niantic for 33 years. I've long said that the main difference between Connecticut and the Titanic is that the Titanic had a band. To me, with all due respect to the preceding gentleman, regionalization is just a fancy term for less local autonomy. We have a situation in town where we are going to be dealing with the Costco project. How is that going to affect traffic on I-95? I live on Corey Lane, like I said, that's not far from Rocky Neck. The location of this proposed facility is the location it is for any kind of emergency services to respond to the center of town. They're going to have to go through the Rocky Neck Gauntlet. That's basically a log jam in the summertime. My feeling is that, yes, we do need a facility, but the location is a problem. I also have a question about the 17 acres that the facility is on. What's going to become of that property? Is that going to be developed? I see the recent election, and I hope everybody in the room here realizes that tolls are a foregone conclusion. We're going to have tolls. So if you commute to work any distance on the highway, be prepared to dig deep. And I mean deep. Now, I've long said that the people in Hartford are kind of like junkies when it comes to money. We talk about a lockbox. I'm not so sure that that lockbox is going to be honored. Now, people may ask me, well, what does that have to do with this proposed police facility? Our taxes in town are going to be going up as town residents. As state residents, our taxes are going to be going up even more. And I think that's something we need to think about. In my basement, I have 2 sump pumps. I've had flooding. I live right next to a swamp. My question is, why couldn't the facility that is at the town hall, I'm sorry, that's the facility that's at the current location that it is, couldn't a second level be built onto that? Couldn't a sump pump be put in the basement? Couldn't that facility be repaired? Couldn't some kind of deal be arranged with Dominion so that the enhancements and improvements that need to be made can be made expeditiously? I understand that we are sort of under the gun here, which some very excellent points were made previously about the timing of this. That's one of my main concerns as well. Anyway, thank you very much for having this forum. That's all I have. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Eric. And we did look at the second floor. There's a rumor that that building was built to accommodate a second floor in some parts, not the part that has a storm drain that comes up into the building, but the main part of the floor. So it would give us some square footage of, advances. We don't have enough area for all the cars and secure parking and all that, and it's in Zone A. So that's the big problem with the location, is its location. Its proximity to hurricane, wind, and nuclear. We shouldn't be putting and investing any money, any big money, into a building in Zone A that needs to be evacuated. First building in town that would need to be evacuated. So that's why we did look into that. You had some other questions and some other points.
The one point as far as the location and say, I mean, I live on Upper Patagonia Road, so I'm about as far away from the current location as you can imagine, yet they could probably get to my house faster from there if they had to. The misconception is the police do not start from there. We have units at the north end of town. We have units in the center of town. We have every day, 24 hours a day. So if there's a call at my house, they're not going to be coming from that facility. They're going to be coming from maybe a block away or over on Scott Road because they're already there. So just everybody needs to keep that in mind, that the police department isn't like the fire department where all the cars stay in the facility 24/7. That was my only point as far as that goes.
Hey, if the police department was in such disarray a year and a half ago, why wasn't this put on the forefront before the schools? I feel I have like no confidence in our town leadership when they pull crap like this. All right, first off, now, Chris, I don't want to put you on the spot, but how much is it going to cost to move the dispatch center? I mean, we're moving computers, we're moving telephone lines, we're moving, cameras, everything.
Currently right now, we have the PSTN network that goes right by with the Nutmeg network. So it cut down.
I can't hear you.
Currently, we have the Nutmeg network and the PSTN network go in front of the building. So for networking-wise, to go to the firehouses, it will cut down costs there. Computers, that's picking them up, moving. Our town server, we can bring out there and bring it back to the firehouses.
All right, well, we're going to have to pay for that. I'm sure AT&T isn't going to do it for free.
We currently pay for that right now out of the PSTN budget.
All right, so that's part of the $3 million that you don't even have a price for.
You'd be paying for that for one instead of 2 locations.
Okay. Next one's for Chief. Now, if I understand it right, and I saw the list up there before, the station's going to be open 24 hours. Okay, so presently now, the dispatch has no communication with the outside world because they're a secure area. So you're telling me that when they go to the police department, they will be the ones meeting people at the door. And if I'm right in assuming, who's going to be watching the prisoners when they're in the holding cells? Okay, because my point is, we only have 3 guys on the road as it is. Now, if one of them has to sit back at the police department and watch the prisoner, now we only have 2 guys on the road.
Correct.
Now, in case of a catastrophe or whatever, that 3rd guy's out, we're going to have dispatchers watching the people in the holding cell. They can't, I'm going to guess, they can't go in and make contact with them. When they go and take their shirt to hang themselves, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to do anything.
And it is a model that's utilized by a good number of departments, at least in southeastern Connecticut, that are smaller in nature, where the dispatcher is a primary observer of the prisoners. Every effort is made to keep an officer in the facility when there's a housed prisoner. But going back to the length that we're housing them, 198 arrests through the end of November, the large majority of those were processed and released and not held any long term. So, you know, your risk of that is a little bit limited, but it's a good point because that's something that we definitely have to address when we get there. But using the models that are utilized by a large number of other departments that are in very similar situations.
Okay, well, I just don't want to hear after this goes through that now we need 3 more police officers to work three more shifts just to watch the station.
Right.
You know, now my $50 cost for the new police department is going to be, you know, a lot more than $50. That's all I got. Thank you.
Bill, one question, to answer one of your questions. To build our entire radio system was $3.5 million. Consoles, renovating dispatch, putting up antennas, putting up 3 receive sites. I believe it's about 130 mobile radios and 280 portables, which we don't have to buy any of that stuff.
We're at 2.5 hours. You folks have been very patient. I'm not going to cut off the questions, but as you see, some of your fellow neighbors have already picked up and moved on. But I just wanted to point that out. If there's any other questions out there, we'd be happy to answer them. We're also going to be listing the questions online. First of all, this video is going to be online at the town hall website, eltownhall.com. We also, for questions, thanks, Julie Wilson, good job with the float this year. Questions at eltownhall.com. If you'd like to ask the commission, the task force, any questions, we'll be happy to, we'll take them, we'll post them, and answer them so the public can see them as well. And there'll also be another meeting. We're going to get through the holidays because I don't think it would be appropriate to do it any time closer than Christmas. Yeah. We're going to have another public meeting. Absolutely, sir. The middle of January or so. Okay? Yeah. Ron, you have one?
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, but there's still a lot of people here, I think, that are interested in what's going on, and I don't think that you should shut it off and cancel it because it's late. If somebody wants to talk, we should stay here till they got what they got to say. Thank you. Let me finish, sir. The first thing I was going to ask is, we got to deal with Honeywell, and if we don't take it, what is Honeywell going to do? Put that building on the market? Yes, sir. For how much? Nobody knows. Okay, they're not going to put it on for 2.7. They'll probably put it on for a lot more. How do we know that building will sell for that price? We don't know. Why should we rush into this? We've been needing a police building for a long time. And I think there's a lot of other options that we should look into before we jump. We always do something halfway in this town. Okay, when we built the swimming pool, and I was pretty knowledgeable on swimming pools, I worked for Suburban for 25 years. And I went to the meetings, and I said, if you're going to build a swimming pool, we need a makeup air unit in there. Oh, no, we don't. We're going to have a special coating on the ceiling. All right, what happened? The ceiling lasted 1 year. Now we put a makeup air unit in there. I don't know what it cost, but it cost us a lot more than if it would have been done when it was there. So if we're going to build a police force, a police building, let's build it right and do it right. Don't rush into it, and let's make it to last 50 years what we need. But let's get a place where it's centrally located, where when they've got to go on a call, they can go north, they can go south, they can go east, or they can go west. But out there, if they got to rush to Flanders and they're going to come up Brybrook Road or 4 Mile River and they're doing 80 miles an hour, somebody's going to get killed sooner or later. Thank you. And that's off. I'm shut off for the rest of the night.
Thanks, Ron.
Always happy to hear from you, Ron.
I'm going to answer just one part of that. I think it's a valid question about the value of the Honeywell building and so forth and so on. Just to let everybody know, the negotiations started, they were at $4 million. They didn't want to hear anything less than $4 million. At the very last moment, the first selectman was able to renegotiate it down to 2.775. I'm almost positive that based upon what Electric Boat is doing with the deep pockets, I would assume that after March 15th comes and goes, if in fact the town opts to not move forward with this, then I would think that Honeywell is in a very optimum position to sell it for $4 million to EB, maybe even more for that matter. So from the due diligence standpoint, I think there's been a lot of due diligence looking at the different facilities, the cost estimates for construction, remodeling, renovating, whatever the case might be. And I think a lot of the data supports that $6 million, well, actually, rephrase that, at 2.775 is a great deal for the taxpayers of this town for the purchase of a building with 17 acres and 30,000 square feet as compared to other 15 projects in the state of Connecticut where the 30,000 square feet is costing them around $15 million. But I think Honeywell is going to be in an excellent position, if in fact, whatever, that the town opts not to move forward with it and sell that building very quickly to somebody such as General Dynamics with the deep pockets.
My question's for the first selectman. Now, in the past, I'm here, but I know somebody had brought it up. You probably did, about the library. People go because they don't have computers. Now, East Lyme has its own channel. Now, these meetings and everything used to be on that channel. Now they're not anymore.
Channel 22. Most of our town meetings, to my knowledge, is still on Channel 22. This meeting has been taped. See all the cameras? And we're going to put it on the town website, a link that will shoot you into YouTube. So it will actually be listed on YouTube, but all you'll do is hit a button on the town website, and it will be linked, and you'll be able to watch all 2 hours and 3/4 of this glorious meeting. We'll also have the PowerPoint. These slides will be separated, and citizens will be able to go through them and see the statistics, see the facts that we presented tonight. So if we didn't stream it tonight, so you wouldn't know that you folks are in the audience, but we were trying to stream it. It didn't work out for us. But we try to put most of our town meetings on, if not 22, they're on by the way, all town meetings that are on Channel 22 are also on the town website through our video links, and you can hit those buttons.
Now, you have to subscribe to that?
No. If you're familiar with the YouTube, they're out there. East Lyme has a YouTube channel. Oh. And but they're linked through our website. So am I getting all that right, Mike? Mike in that blue shirt right back here. Mike, raise your hand. So Mike is a volunteer. He's on our cable advisory council. But man, all he does is do all sorts of tech stuff for us for free as a volunteer citizen. And he puts most of these things on our website and shapes that website for us.
Oh, okay. I was just curious.
Yeah, that too.
I'd just like to ask a question. Are you currently working with a design professional?
Yeah, glad you asked. You know, we have 10 layers on this thing, and we probably presented 2 of it. And we kind of just waited for questions. We wanted to see where the citizens wanted to go. We brought in one of the premier public safety designers in the state, Brian Humes, who only does town halls and public safety buildings. And he walked the Honeywell building with us, looked at the quality of it, and inquired about, we listed when the roof was done and the HVACs and all that. And he gave us that price of $3 million. That's where that number comes from. The 2.775 to buy, that came from real estate agents who specialize in commercial development, and they did comps throughout the state and throughout our region and came up with a fair price of the 2.775. That's where that came from the $4 million that Honeywell wanted, and we're putting pressure on us to go
So
that
he did
direction.
a code analysis to make it a public safety building?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Just real quick, what other town property does the town have in the Zone A? What other critical infrastructure does the town have in that Zone A? Is the Nyack Fire Department or the current town hall?
Niantic Fire Department and Town Hall, yes.
So both of those are?
Yes.
So it's a little disingenuous to say that you can't have it in Zone A because we already have properties that aren't being looked at to be moved. We still could have it in Zone A, it's just not optimal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
But to invest millions of dollars into a facility that needs to be evacuated the second something happens, a flood or any emergency, and especially our emergency operations center, where it's the brain of, it's all the departments work off of the emergency operations center in an emergency. And to not be able to conduct business there because you're being evacuated would not make sense. Yes, we can legally build there, but we wouldn't want to spend your taxpayer money on.
Well, we also already have
use.
2 properties that aren't going to be moved, that are critical infrastructure. I'm just saying you should flesh it out a little bit and say there are other properties that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point to clarify. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate your interest.
Thank you. Please, if you get a chance to do the police open house, go through that. Can you put that slide up again, Joe? Thanks. And we will schedule, as soon as we can, another one of these for everybody. And we'll put the schedule up as far as how we're proceeding with the other boards up as soon as we have that schedule known. Thank you all very, very much for your patience.